Hello and welcome again. I am Simon Dan, and today I'm attempting to take on one of the Flat Earth big boys, Mark Sargent. He's a self-confessed expert on all things Flat Earth, but I don't feel like he has any credence in anything other than the whole fake space thing. I've seen some of his proofs and they are thoroughly unconvincing. In this particular video, he's gunning for NASA in a big way, and he's dressed it up like some low-budget TV movie trailer. On this occasion, unlike my usual format, I'm going to let the whole thing run and my counter will follow. Enjoy.
Seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What you're looking at is part of, I haven't really rehearsed this, so I'm just going to go with it, is part of the greatest science fiction story ever told, which goes back hundreds of years, but only became relevant in about 1960, 1958, which is, what if science, mainstream science, figured out, this is your flat earth, you wanted me to talk about flat earth, here's flat earth. What if mainstream science figured out that the world was not a globe anymore? What would you be willing to do to protect what we've been teaching for 20, 25 generations, since Copernicus, that the world was a globe? What would you be willing to do? Money is not an object. This is what you come up with. Eventually, sooner or later, you're going to have to, because remember, up until NASA was formed, there was no picture taken of the Earth from space, ever. So how do you show people a picture of the Earth from space? It's not like I can just take a picture and hand it to you and say, hey, here's the picture of the Earth from space. You have to at least simulate the technology before people figure it out on their own. So you create a rocket program to take the picture, to even fake the picture, because the picture was never taken, it was just painted in. You have to create a rocket program to at least simulate, give you at least people the idea that they can go up high enough to take that picture. And then you have to protect it at all costs. And then you have to discontinue it and make it seem like it was never that big a deal, and hold on to it for as long as you can. And that's exactly what they did. In 1958, NASA was formed. And by the mid-1960s, and we'll go over the other side of that wall, Apollo 8 supposedly, circled the Earth. And then others went to the moon and circled back. And then eventually we landed people on the moon. And then eventually it got boring. And they say, well, the ratings weren't good enough, and people were complaining that we were watching moon footage. They weren't complaining that they were watching moon footage. The quality of the production of the moon footage was so terrible that people didn't want to watch it. So then...
And maybe that was on purpose as well?
Yes, absolutely. They had to discontinue it before the technology, way before the internet was created, way before HD technology was created. You make it seem like it's just not that big a deal. In 1972, they closed the whole thing down, the end of 1972. But on the way back, you remember, Apollo 8 through Apollo 16 never took a picture of the Earth. They waited till the last possible minute, so that way you couldn't compare pictures. It was perfect. Then on the way back, Apollo 17 takes a picture that shows two things. Even though it was an American space program, it showed two things that were relevant. One was Africa, part of Africa, and the other part was, the only continent that showed its entirety was Antarctica. They killed two birds with one stone. Picture of the Earth, that's what Antarctica looks like. We're shutting down the space program. Good night, everybody. And that's what they did. And it was perfect. The problem is the time caught up. 1972, that's 2 generations ago. And since then, they've had a space shuttle program, which we were just at, discontinued. There were no pictures of the Earth from space all the way up. They milked that picture literally, didn't even bother even making composites, from 1972 all the way up until 2004. And then, they didn't even claim to have taken a second blue marble shot until 2015, after we asked for it, after the Flat Earth asked for it. And that's where we are now. We are now in a dated facility, which nobody goes to, with massive technology that we can't replicate anymore. And we're telling people to do your own research, ask questions, look at this and understand that not everything is what it appears to be. And it's true. This rocket does nothing. You couldn't even, supposedly, if you ask the engineers, you're not going to be able to do anything with it anyway.
Yes, 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 that's all very nice, but I think the story goes a little more like this. So, the shape of the Earth is something that had been well understood for a long, long time. It is, for all intents and purposes, a sphere. At some point in the mid-20th century, people began to talk again about a flat Earth, the likelihood being that they saw it in the Bible, so took it as being true. They wrote books on the topic and started telling all that would listen in an effort to convert them. NASA became the natural enemy because everything they did was in direct conflict with the flat Earth belief. Fast forward a few decades and the internet allowed them to cast a wider web. Some of the believers started to make YouTube videos and people watched them. Believers now came from all walks of life, not just those that were religious, all of them, predisposed to believe in conspiracies, and they ran with it, picking up all the lingo on the way. And then those people made YouTube videos too, trying to make themselves feel a little bit more significant in the process. Cries of fake ISS, the ice wall and no curvature were pumped through the hose of the World Wide Web, allowing more to drink from their ill-educated waterhole. The flood of paranoia swept across the internet. Everything NASA had ever done was being ridiculed and mocked. The movement grew stronger as a few self-proclaimed leaders that could string a few sentences together stood up and presented differing models of how a flat Earth worked. It didn't matter that all the models contradicted each other, or that they had to make up pseudo-scientific reasons for natural occurrences. Traditional science became indoctrination, and everyone who knew the Earth as a globe were branded asleep. Flat Earthers then go around telling people that they are awake, and affectionately referring to themselves as truth seekers, still clinging to this fallacy that they believe they are special because they think they know something the rest of the world doesn't. And that's where we are today, where jumped up nonsensical fools parade around with unwavering conviction, lapping up each other's theories only to reaffirm their gullibility in the conspiracy theory. I think that's about it. Thanks as ever to all my subscribers. I'm genuinely shocked at how many of you there are already. If you get a spare few minutes, please check out the Patreon page as well. I have been Simon Dan. Thank you for watching. A like and subscribe would be wonderful. Goodbye.